everyone, welcome back. You guys have been sharing some really interesting articles about changing demographics, like especially when it comes to women, work, and family life.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to dive deep today into a Morgan Stanley study that really kind of predicts some pretty big changes by 2030.
Okay.
Get this, it suggests that 45% of women between 25 and 44 will be single A&D childless
Wow.
by the end of the decade.
Okay.
That's a huge jump. So we're going to unpack why this might be happening. Things like changing gender roles, financial independence, career goals, it's a whole societal shift that we're seeing. What's your
Hmm.
initial take on this?
Well, I think what's interesting is that the study really looks at women who are like 25 to 44 years old.
Right.
And that's usually, when people are starting families and stuff. So to see this kind of shift away from that, I think is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the study points to a few different reasons why this is happening.
Yeah.
It mentions things like evolving gender roles and financial independence. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Starting with the societal changes, I think, the study makes this point that women aren't necessarily feeling bound by these traditional expectations of marriage and motherhood anymore.
Right. And I think more and more women are focusing on education
Mhm.
and really building their careers before they even consider,
Yeah.
starting a family.
Yeah.
It's like they're reevaluating their priorities in a way.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because the study shows that divorce rates are going up and fewer women are actually remarrying.
Mhm.
So it's not even just about delaying marriage. It's like rethinking the whole idea of it.
Right.
What do you think that says about how relationships are changing?
Well, I think it says that women are maybe like moving away from this idea that marriage is a necessity,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
They're realizing they have more choices
Mhm.
and they're choosing paths that really prioritize their own needs and their dreams first.
Absolutely. And the study really highlights how a woman's desire for financial security impacts her decisions about family life. I mean, wouldn't you say that being financially stable kind of gives you more control over your own life? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, financial independence gives women the power to make choices, that are best for them. They don't have to be driven by financial need or feel pressured. And I think that's a major factor in all of this.
Yeah, yeah. And the study also talks about professional growth, about how more and more women are prioritizing their careers and developing their skills.
Hmm.
What kind of impact do you think that has on those traditional family structures?
Well, I think it challenges them quite a bit.
Mm.
We're seeing more women become the main breadwinners in their families.
Oh, yeah,
And that has a ripple effect on how we think about roles and responsibilities within a family unit.
for sure. So we've got all these different factors coming together, and as with any, big societal change, there are both advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
So what do you see as some of the potential upsides to this trend?
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages is the shift in gender roles. We're moving away from this idea, like this old-fashioned idea,
Mm-hmm.
that women are only supposed to be caregivers or homemakers.
Right.
And it opens up so many opportunities for women to pursue their passions,
Yeah.
to contribute to society in a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, and the study even uses the phrase changing gender roles, which I think really gets to the heart of it.
It does.
This evolution, wouldn't you say?
For sure. I think it's about recognizing and valuing what women bring to the table beyond those traditional roles.
Yeah.
It really helps women to be more independent,
Mm-hmm.
to develop themselves, to define success on their own terms, which I think is really powerful.
It is incredibly empowering, but, the study is also realistic about the challenges that still exist.
Yeah.
It acknowledges, those double standards that women still face, even with all this progress.
Yeah.
There's still societal pressure and like a potential stigma around choosing to be single and childless.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how these factors might play out as this trend continues?
That's a great question. I think, a lot of societal expectations are changing, but some things are slower to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can celebrate the progress while also being realistic that these pressures still exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how that tension plays out over the next few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? Like, as more women choose this path, will those pressures start to lessen? It's like a chicken and egg thing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's like one of the most fascinating parts of this whole conversation.
Yeah.
How does societal change actually happen? Does individual choice lead to these broader shifts, or is it the other way around?
Right. Yeah. to see how it unfolds, I guess. But the study does suggest some solutions
Hmm.
that could help us, navigate these challenges and move towards a more equitable society for everyone. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on those.
Yeah, absolutely. The study highlights the need for things like flexible work hours,
Oh, yeah.
affordable childcare, and this is key parental leave for both genders.
Right. Yeah, those are all really important steps, aren't they? I mean, if we're talking about changing gender roles and expectations, it seems like those kind of policies would really need to be in place.
Exactly. Flexible work arrangements would give women more options to balance their careers and their personal lives.
Right.
Affordable childcare would take some of that financial pressure off.
Yeah.
And parental leave for both parents could really challenge those traditional gender roles we've been talking about.
It's about creating a system that supports all choices, right?
Yeah.
Whether a woman wants to be a stay-at-home mom or a CEO or anything in between.
That's the goal, isn't it? To move away from this idea that there's only one right way for women to live their lives. The study talks about the need for wider societal acceptance of diverse lifestyles.
Right.
You know, a woman's worth shouldn't be tied to whether she's married or has kids.
Right. I think that's such an important point,
Mm.
Like we need to celebrate what makes each person unique, no matter what their family situation looks like.
Yeah.
And the study also mentions the importance of support networks for single women,
Right.
especially as they get older. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a crucial point because, you know, it's easy to overlook the need for those support systems. But as people age, their needs change, you know.
Yeah.
It's so important to have that support, whether it's family or friends or community organizations, to make sure they have access to care and companionship as they get older.
Yeah. It's about fostering that sense of belonging no matter your relationship status.
Absolutely.
We all need that, especially as we age.
We do, and I think this brings us to a really important takeaway. This isn't just about individual women making choices. It's about a larger societal shift.
Right.
And that requires us all to work together and support each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we need to create an environment where women can thrive regardless of what path they choose.
I love how you bring it back to that idea of collective action.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that, this isn't just a women's issue. It's a societal issue that impacts all of us.
It does. And we all have a role to play in creating a more inclusive and equitable world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Changing demographics, the reasons behind this trend, the pros and cons, potential solutions.
Mm.
As we start to wrap up, what are some of the key takeaways you'd like to highlight for our listener?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that we were on the verge of a major demographic shift.
Yeah.
This trend of women choosing to remain single and childless is only going to grow. And that has huge implications for our society and our economy.
Right.
We need to be ready for these changes and adapt our systems to meet the needs of this growing population.
It is a bit like we're building a new blueprint for society,
Yeah.
one that values individual choice and recognizes all the different ways that people choose to live their lives,
Exactly. It's a shift away from that one-size-fits-all model of success and happiness.
which is definitely something to be excited about. So before we wrap up completely, is there anything else you want to leave our listener with? Something to ponder as they continue exploring this topic on their own.
Hmm. If this trend continues, and all signs point to that it will, how might our communities and support systems need to evolve to meet the needs of this growing population of single, childless women, especially as they age?
That's a really great question. It challenges us to think about the future and how we can build a society that truly supports all its members.
And ensures that everyone has what they need to live fulfilling and meaningful lives.
Beautifully put. Well, that wraps up our deep dive today. We hope this conversation gave you some new insights and food for thought.
Yeah.
Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we understand these complex issues, the better equipped we are to create a more just and equitable world for all. Until next time, keep diving deep. It really makes you think about those long-term implications, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And it's not just about, like, societal structures. Think about the economic impact as well.
Oh, that's a great point. How do you see this trend affecting things like, consumer markets and the workforce?
Well, for starters, industries that cater to those, like, traditional families
Hmm.
might see a shift in demand.
Okay.
Like, think about housing. The need for those larger family homes could decrease,
Yeah.
while demand for, smaller, maybe more flexible living spaces might actually rise.
That's interesting. What about things like retirement planning and elder care? Those are areas where, traditionally family members have played a pretty big role.
Right, exactly. And as this demographic group ages, We might see an increased need for those alternative support systems, social services.
Yeah.
It could lead to some really innovative solutions in those areas with new models of caregiving, community living, all that kind of stuff emerging.
It's almost like we're kind of redefining what it means to age well in society.
I think so, yeah. And that could be a really positive thing. It could lead to more diverse and inclusive communities where, people are supported regardless of their relationship status or their family structure.
So it seems like this trend presents both challenges and opportunities.
Definitely.
It's going to require some, serious thought and planning from policymakers, businesses, individuals, everyone, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about adapting to the changes, it's about proactively shaping a future that works for everyone.
Right.
A future where all individuals feel valued and empowered to live fulfilling lives, regardless of their choices.
Well said. I think this deep dive has given our listener a lot to consider.
Yeah,
It's a complex issue with some pretty far-reaching
it
implications.
is.
But by understanding the trends and the potential outcomes, we can start to have those important conversations and work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable future.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, and these conversations are so crucial for driving positive change.
That's a perfect note to end on. To our listener, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those deep dives going. Thanks for joining us.